It is Free Talk Live. We're here in Acapulco for day number 3 of what is going to basically be almost a week of live broadcasts from not quite a rooftop, but it seems like we're on a rooftop.
It feels rooftop-y.
Yeah. We're at a very, very beautiful location in a very nice place. Mark, you were just checking the weather in Acapulco. We learned last night that there really isn't that much rainfall here, despite it being a coastal city.
About 53 inches per year.
And then you were just looking to see if it changes much from the wintertime to the summertime, and what did you learn?
Right. Coming from New Hampshire, where
there's drastic change.
Right. I don't have it pulled up here in front of me, but the difference between the mean high in February and the mean high in July, it's a big difference.
Yep.
Here in Acapulco, it's not even 5 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow. That's amazing.
It just doesn't make a difference. It's always
so
this
year
way.
Round, it's like this. Yeah. Is what you're saying. Maybe a little hotter during the summer, but not that much.
Right. And Acapulco isn't the resort town it was a few decades ago, but there's still a lot about it to like.
Well, there's certainly plenty of resorts here still, so, I don't know how many of them have gone out of business, but it seems to be a bustling
It seems to be where
city.
The people from the Mexicans, so Mexican City and Mexico City and that sort of thing, they
come to vacation?
Yeah, to vacation.
Makes sense. So we're here. We will take your calls and thoughts about whatever you want, and, of course, we're gearing up for the upcoming Acapulco event that is going to be happening in just under a week's time. It kicks off on Thursday. We'll be going out there to get things set up next week, but we're going to continue doing live shows right up until just before Acapulco kicks off, because we can, and we get the equipment to do so. I'm putting together a little update for our email list, which you can go and sign up for over at freetalklive.com, which will give you a kind of a picture of what our remote studio looks like here, and the incredible view that you can get in Acapulco for approximately $1,100 plus the power bill.
That's right.
Is basically what you got here. You got
right.
6 bedrooms.
We got 6 bedrooms, 5 baths in what appears to be a very new or at least renovated structure.
It's in good shape.
$1,100 for the month of February. That's
right.
4 weeks, and it's been very, very nice.
It has. So toll-free number tonight is 855-450-FREE. Also, we have the Discord on-air call-in line rooms, which you can join by going to discord.lrn.fm. Just jump on into one of those, and we will get you on the air here with us. Mark, you wanted to talk about there's some kind of a green deal, some kind of thing that's being pitched in D.C.
Yeah,
I've heard about it, but I don't know. I really don't know any details.
The Green New Deal, and
the first New Deal was a pretty raw deal, so I imagine this one isn't going to be much better.
Right. These things that are put out are often terrible stuff, but this Green New Deal is put out by to some extent the Ocasio-Cortez, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is the anti-Trump gal, the opposite of Trump,
the socialist lady.
Yeah, and a number of Democratic Party presidential hopefuls, including Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Kristen Gillibrand, Jillian Castro, Beto O'Rourke.
I don't know who most of these people are.
Well, I know some of these names.
Yeah.
And you're going to know about them because some of them are running for president.
Yeah. That's where I've heard some of the names, but I just don't know anything else about them. I know who the AOC chick is.
Well, let's go through their
She's cute.
Proposal.
Ugly ideas, though.
Right, ugly ideas. Deadly ideas.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Warren, you got that name? Cory Booker?
Wasn't she like one of the Democratic people at the top dogs?
I read a headline. She threw her hat.
Wasn't
in
she
the ring.
Massachusetts? Isn't she
That's
Massachusetts?
Right.
Okay.
Nothing good comes from there.
No.
Speaking as somebody who's just over the border.
Right. So this is a bunch of presidential contenders teaming up to propose, what do they call it, a Green New Deal?
Yep, and I've got here from thefederalist.com a list of, some of the crazier parts of the Green New Deal.
Let's hear it.
So the timeline is 10 years, and here are some of the goals.
Meaning they have to implement these things within 10 years?
The hope is to implement.
If this passes, and it may
won't,
not.
and they know that. It's a proposal. Proposals don't start with passing, but ban affordable energy, The Green New Deal calls for the elimination of all fossil fuel energy production, the lifeblood of the American industry and life, which includes not only all oil, but also natural gas, one of the cheapest sources of American energy, and one of the reasons the United States has been able to lead the world in carbon emission reduction.
Yeah, that's
also,
not going to happen.
They didn't mention in the Federalist Papers, it's really the Federalist.com, that it's really important that they're also banning nuclear power. Look, if you want green energy and you want to ban nuclear power, you don't understand energy.
Well, apparently you don't want people to actually travel at all because, I mean, yeah, there's some battery-operated cars. In fact, you've got one of them. You've got one of those battery hybrid charger things. But it's got like plug-in too, so I guess that's different than your typical hybrid, right? So it's electric /
Well, actually, the new hybrids pretty much are plug-in too.
All of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, why not put a bigger battery and then be able to charge the battery at night?
Yeah.
Cheaply.
So you've got one of these things. You voluntarily decided to do it because you didn't want to support the oil industry. It was a choice that you made as a consumer.
Right.
They're saying they want to force that same decision down everybody's throat, no matter how poor they are, because, you know, you might have been able to, as a relatively successful man in his late 40s, you might have been able to afford one of these fancy new hybrids.
I got the car well into my, like in my early 40s. I think we've had the car, I think I got the car in my late 30s.
Sure, but the average person isn't going to go out and buy a brand new car. I mean, maybe they do.
No, we spent too much, but that was back when the Prius plug-in technology was new.
Right.
But I will say
these things still aren't cheap. I mean, my point here is, my point here is, if you are 25 years old and you got an old beater that you're driving around, some oldie from the 1990s, a Toyota Camry or something like that, and that's about all you can afford, all of a sudden these politicians come in and they're like, well, now you got 5 years and you got to upgrade, you got to get yourself one of these plug-in dealies and switch completely over to that system, even though you may not be able to afford it. How many people are going to be completely unable to drive from point A to point B?
They basically did this with the Cash for Clunkers deal, too. They essentially made it so that poor people can't afford cheap cars by giving out subsidies to get rid of the lowest end cars. You never find that $1,000 car that runs anymore.
Could you really in the past?
Oh yeah, you found that.
I never found that. I found it back in, probably around the turn of the century. I spent about $1,000 on a car, and it was just a piece of garbage.
I understand that you have had some bad luck with vehicles in the past, but yes, you can find.
Yeah, okay. I'm just telling you, back then, $1,000 was going to buy you problems. Back then, you would rarely find a car.
An old car is problems.
Yeah, you would rarely find a car for $1,000 that doesn't come with serious issues.
Everything has car payment. Every car has payments, right?
Sure, whether it's the payments you're making to a car company or bank or whatever. But look, the point is, Mark, this isn't going to fly.
That's what the third point is, by the way, to eliminate 99% of cars.
Well, we'll get to that, but the point is, just on point number one, it's not going to fly. The oil companies are no slouch when it comes to political lobbying, and assuredly they have enough politicians in their pocket. Even if it were a Democrat Congress, and it is, and a Democrat president, this proposal wouldn't fly. Those people have all kinds of money, and they have all kinds of influence in Washington, D.C.
Sure.
This is just for image.
Well, yeah,
symbolic.
But that's the problem, though, is that the image, people like the image. But American voters, the problem isn't that there are crazy politicians with crazy ideas. The problem is that people will vote for those politicians. Sure. That's really the issue. Look, these atrocities that have happened worldwide don't happen in a vacuum. It's not one lunatic that does them. It's a bunch of people.
Yeah, that's true.
They want to gut and rebuild every building in America. Markey and Cortez want to retrofit every building in America with state-of-the-art, energy-efficient, I repeat, every building in America. That includes every home, factory, apartment building, which will all need, for starters, to have their entire working heating and cooling systems ripped out and replaced with, whatever technology Democrats are going to invent in their committee hearings, I guess.
Talk about a huge government make-work program, huh? I mean, you want to talk about the ridiculous government infrastructure spending that they just spend countless billions of dollars on. This would be incalculable, the amount of money.
I love the energy-efficient cooling and heating when people, these architects get together and they try to make the best house for that work the best way. I think that's awesome.
That's cool.
I love it.
It's a cool hobby.
But you can't just take whatever tech you come up with and stick it in any home and suddenly it works.
There's more coming up here, and plus the amount of money and energy you'd have to spend doing all of that would be ridiculous.
No, but just tear all the buildings down and rebuild them greeny.
There's more coming up here. This is Free Talk Live. You want to share your thoughts? 855-450. Welcome to Free Talk Live from Acapulco, Mexico for the next several days, and then we'll be at the Acapulco event coming up next week. By the way, you can join us here toll-free at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-FREE. We've also got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms. They're open and available to you over at discord.lrn.fm. Free Talk Live is brought to you by AnyPay. If you've got a retail business and you've been looking to accept cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, maybe Dash, Zcash, and others, go to anypay.global and you can get signed up there. And when I say sign up, I mean you create a username and a password, and you're in. That's it. There's no approval process. There's no bureaucracy. There's no paperwork. You just get in there, put your cryptocurrency wallet addresses into the back end, and then load the app on your point-of-sale device. That's it. You're done. You're accepting Bitcoin. You're accepting some other cryptos as well. In fact, they just reactivated Bitcoin Cash on their system. Plus, there's even now Ripple available as one of the cryptos you can accept through AnyPay. Go to anypay.global, and yes, it is free if you're a merchant to accept cryptocurrency through AnyPay. That's anypay.global. We can go to your phone calls and thoughts. We have been talking about this green proposal, a so-called Green New Deal. I think we got through like point number 1. I don't know, was there 10 points?
Yeah, there's several points, and we've gotten through a few of them. Yep.
So we'll get to more of that coming up here. But first, let's go to the phones, to the fun. We got Dana on the line in Maine. Dana, you're on Free Talk Live.
Great show, folks. I hope you can hear me.
Welcome. Yeah, we got you. Go ahead.
I'd like to address a question. To me, it's the most important question, and I've never heard it addressed in any honest, intelligent way by any political group or anybody in the mainstream media. That question is, who creates our money and how do they do it? And I can count maybe 10 people in my life who honestly understand this question, can answer that. And I've been listening to you folks, and I've never heard you guys condemn, which makes me think you don't truly understand it. You've never condemned the many special acts of legislation that have been they've enthroned these banksters. These banksters, we are nothing but slaves to these. And I believe, although there's never been any honest audit done, most of the people that I've found that have done any studying here, conjecture is that these are foreigners that are largely in control of our money supply. And also,
okay, so let's just pause you right there, because you already asked the question, and I don't want to get too deep into the continuing statements before we can respond to it. I don't know how new you are to Free Talk Live, but I mean, we have condemned the government money system here run by the Federal Reserve and all central banks all around the world on a multitude of occasions here on this program.
So no, that's not. I wouldn't call it a government money system at all. These are private banks.
I would call it quasi-governmental, because the president appoints the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
There's that, and also the Federal Reserve also is the guaranteed lender of last resort to the federal government, so they've got a sweetheart deal with these people. But yeah, you could claim the Federal Reserve as a private organization, kind of like how you might be able to claim
banks. It's a cartel of private banks that operate with special information. They have special foreknowledge as to the future market conditions. They can. They're a cartel.
Agreed. Yeah, they're absolutely a cartel. They're government mandated as a cartel. They have what's called legal tender, which is a law that forces everyone within the geographic limitations of the United States to accept their money as payment for all debts, public and private. It says it right there on the Federal Reserve notes.
Yeah, and we've spent a lot of time going through it, and our solution for it is that we've come to the conclusion that it's not the private banks aspect of it, it's not the fiat currency aspect of it, it's not the government money aspect. It's the government money aspect of it that creates the real problem. The fact that government is deciding what is money and what isn't money is the root of the problem here. And that's one of the reasons that we support cryptocurrency. We support the owning of gold and silver and these sorts of things.
You guys yourself are trying to get cryptocurrency accepted as legal tender down in New Hampshire. That's what makes money.
Well,
that's what money. The definition of money is.
No. Hold on. No. Wait. Whoa. I got to correct you on something. The definition of legal tender is the form of money that the government mandates that everyone accept as payment for all debts, public and private. That's what legal tender is.
Mostly
and no,
tax.
nobody is saying. No one is saying. Hold on. No one that I've ever heard in New Hampshire is saying that cryptocurrency should be considered legal tender. That is money that has the force of government behind it, and that would be contrary to all of the principles that most people who are into cryptocurrency hold. And those principles are to get away from central money systems, to get away from government money, to get away from mandated currency that can be. You said fiat's not a problem, Mark, but I disagree with you there. Fiat's a huge problem when it comes to a mandated government currency because they can just issue.
It's because fiat is the end of the evolution of government money, because the government will always say, yes, you should accept our money that's backed by nothing because we're the government and we're really good people.
And they can print as much as they want,
obviously,
at will, which is a huge problem.
But the problem is that people understand it as government money. Here's what's going to happen every single time with government money. First, the government says, okay, we'll hold all the stuff of value, whether it's gold or silver or seashells or whatever the hell it is. And then we'll issue you some paper or metal, receipts for that. And then at some point or another, they're going to say, well, we're going to issue 10 times as much as we have in receipts. And then it's going to be, oh, well, now we're just going to issue the receipts and we're not going to have the gold and silver
anymore.
That's what governments do. They're liars.
Right, exactly. Go ahead.
Well, wait a minute. You guys have got me off there. Not only are there notes been made receivable in dues to government, and that's the big one, by the way. Whatever the government declares that you have to pay in taxes has been over in the course of history has been the money in that jurisdiction. The other thing that they're allowed to do, these banksters, these private banksters who have fooled people into thinking that they're public somehow, quasi-public. This is a private. They've never even been audited for crying
Dana,
out loud.
before you go on here with that point, I mean, look. It wouldn't matter to me if the Federal Reserve was private or government. Either way, it's a monopoly money system, and it is not okay to force one particular form of currency down other people's throats. So I don't know why, look, if it weren't a mandate that people had to accept this stuff, then would it matter whether it came from a private organization? Because when it comes to private organizations, you can choose generally whether or not you want to use that private organization's money. So, for instance, if you want to use Walmart bucks, that's your choice. If you don't want to use Walmart bucks, then that's up to you. But if it's the Federal Reserve, you have to.
Yeah, but we have to pay our taxes, and as long as we can only pay our taxes with Federal Reserve notes, then that is going to be the money of account here in America. And you have never. I heard you some time ago, Ian.
And it's not okay wherever it comes from, because taxes aren't okay. When you force people to pay taxes, you're threatening them with violence if they don't do it. So whether you have to pay taxes in Federal Reserve notes or gold and silver, the taxes there are the problem. Now, it sounds like you got more to say, Dana. Hang on. We'll bring it back. We can continue the discussion here because, look, I don't like monopolies, whether they be private or whether they be public, whenever they're enforced by the threat of violence.
Competition makes everything better.
Yeah, there's more coming up here in moments. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And yes, that was some kind of car alarm in the background. This is Free Talk.
Bitcoin.com is delighted to announce their latest partnership with the gift card specialists at eGifter. With many of the world's leading brands on their roster, it is now easier than ever to get the gift cards of your favorite brands with Bitcoin Cash. To get started, just follow these simple steps. Visit giftcards.bitcoin.com, pick the gift card you want, follow the instructions on your screen, and make your payment using your Bitcoin Cash wallet. Sit tight and your gift card will be delivered to you as soon as it's ready. That's giftcards.bitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live. We're here in Acapulco, Mexico. Still able to take your calls live. Our number is 855-450-FREE. The live Saturday edition here, 855-450-3733. We're talking about, and I hope we're not miscommunicating here or talking past one another with our caller on the line.
I suspect that's what's happening.
Well, and that's why I wanted to keep him on, because I feel like there was some of that happening, and I wanted to see if somehow we can kind of come to some sort of mutual understanding about these are to me very important issues. The issue of money. I mean, those was it Rockefeller who said something about he who controls money controls everything.
Rothschild,
one of those guys.
I care not about a country's politics, but give me control of their money and blah blah blah.
And that's that. So we've got Dana on the line in Maine, listening to us online. I think actually on our YouTube stream. And Dana, welcome back here on Free Talk Live. I also before we continue, wanted to correct maybe a misunderstanding about what's happening in New Hampshire. There is a bill that's been proposed, so it's still in subcommittee right now. It hasn't even been voted on by the full House or even a full committee. But the bill is a proposal to allow the New Hampshire government to have a plan to accept Bitcoin for payment of some sort of taxes. Now, it's not clear for which taxes it would be accepted, but they would have to have a plan that they would have to use that to accept it for something. And so that actually solves one of your objections that you brought up earlier about feeling like you're forced to use this, what you describe as private banker cartel money. I described it as government money, but either way, it's kind of both. But these U.S. dollars to pay taxes, this would give you a choice in New Hampshire of something else with which you could pay taxes. Is that something that you actually value? Is that a good idea in your book?
I don't like a money that has been created by any special interest group to be in control of the creation of the money. Money is
okay. So that's not okay. So maybe you don't know a lot about Bitcoin, but Bitcoin was not created by a special interest group. Bitcoin was created by Satoshi Nakamoto. And we don't know if it was one person. We don't know if it was more than one. We don't know if it was more than one person or one person. So we don't know if it's a he, a she, or a group of people. We really have no idea. But the thing about Bitcoin that maybe you don't know is that it's open source. So the code is completely viewable to the entire world. Anybody that knows programming can get in there. Right. So it's not a cartel. It's not a private company or anything like that.
It's a great system, and it probably, I would say that a system like that could be used. Let me get back to, first off, I asked the question early on, who creates our money and how do they do it? Most people are unaware, and I don't think you guys have ever mentioned it. Most of our money is created in private commercial banks through the process of fractional reserve deposit creation.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, actually.
That has been passed in the favoring banksters, which have basically enthroned them. Once you have control of the money, you're the apex corporation. You basically have
no doubt about it.
That's why they got to be too big to fail.
Right, but you didn't even when you mentioned the term, you didn't explain it. So let's take a moment, Dana. Hey, Dana, hang on, okay? Let's just explain, because you just kind of brushed over what fractional reserve banking is. That not only does it give these banks the ability to loan money that doesn't exist, essentially the banks get to create money out of thin air when you sign the loan paperwork. So yes, this is something that we're very familiar with, and we've talked about. I don't know. Again, like I said, how new are you to Free Talk Live?
And charge interest, only about 8 months. I'm a little worked
up. Okay,
I heard you talk some time ago.
Yeah, it sounds like you are.
Was, Ian, you said that some time ago that you didn't care about equality. Now, I think you were talking about equality of outcome. I'll give you that. But I would loudly assert that I definitely advocate for equality of opportunity, or equality
under
the law. An egalitarian society where everyone is treated equally. When you have a group of people, i.e. these private foreign, a lot of people say they're foreign bankers, who have special privileges in money creation, controlling the money, being able, having special foreknowledge as to future market conditions, when and when to buy puts and calls, and how to thrive in the derivative market. You are enslaved. We are enslaved. Money is the great scoreboard of life, Bob, and there's nothing fair, honest.
There's no doubt about it that the government money system. There's no doubt, Dana. I'm just going to put you on hold here for a moment. There's no doubt that the government money system is part of the reason why people are enslaved to the system. I mean,
I further agree with Dana that it does affect the quality of opportunity, equality of opportunity. There isn't equality of opportunity if you have all the foreknowledge, if you know what's going to go on.
Also, if you have the printing press and you can just turn it on and crank out money and give it to all your buddies.
And what we can see with these banks is sometimes that foreknowledge is still irrelevant because we had the banking crisis in 2008 or whatever, 6, 8, I don't know. It just kept on rolling on whenever you decide it all began. I mean, you know, these people were too big to fail. The government gave them money. They gave money to the auto companies, but they don't give money to you and me. If we go out of business, who cares?
It's part of the reason that we encourage people to get out of the old banker money system and put their value, that you create value, you know, when you go out there and you work in the marketplace, put the value that you've created into something that is not manipulated by these bankers and by these governments of the world. And right now, the best choice, in my opinion, and I'm no expert, is cryptocurrency. Now, there are a bunch of different options out there for cryptocurrency, but almost all of them are independent. They have nothing whatsoever to do with banks. And they are volatile, right? Like, so you don't know what's going to happen with the price day in to day out. So I wouldn't say put all your eggs in one basket. It probably makes sense to have some cryptocurrency, gold and silver as well, even though there's some allegations that that the stocks of those things are manipulated. But at the very least, if you're holding on to precious metals, then that gives you control over that, physical control in that case. So those might be a couple of different ways that you can take your value out of the U.S. dollar or whatever, if you're an international listener, out of the bolivar, out of the Canadian dollar, out of the peso, and put it into something that you actually have control over. You get to decide. When you hold cryptocurrency, you are the person who holds the keys to your wallet. There's no banker. There's no government cannot come in there and take your Bitcoin out of your wallet. It just can't be done unless you decide to give them the keys to it. And I wouldn't do that if I were you.
And the other thing I would say about cryptocurrency is it's been much more successful in undermining government currencies in the last decade that it's existed than gold and silver has been for the last 5.
So here's what I'd like to ask you, Dana, is do you have alternatives personally? And if so, what do you prefer?
Oh, I got some nice southeast facing land. I got to use Federal Reserve notes, so to pay the property taxes on that, I can't use Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
You'd starve if you had to use just Bitcoin, right, guys? Hey,
actually, that's not true.
Listen to David Hickey.
No, that's actually false as well, Dana. I'm sorry, you just don't have a lot of good information here. Actually, I use Bitcoin regularly to eat food in my hometown of Keene, New Hampshire.
And I think even more importantly, you can go to Save at Purse, that's SaveAtPurse.com, and you can buy anything that they have on Amazon, and you can get it at a discount between 25 and 30% if you want to get it in that general vicinity. If you're willing to wait a couple of days extra, which means that you can get all kinds of bulk food.
Sure,
if that's what you want to get. I mean, obviously, fresh produce is going to be a little more difficult, but it's a coming. You can get you can go to Bitcoin.com, and they've got relationships with these cards. You can get a Whole Foods gift card. You can go to Whole Foods, and you can buy all the fresh vegetables you need. Yes, you can get your whole diet on Bitcoin. You probably can't go out to a coffee shop in most towns and get a latte, but a lot of them you can.
It is still new technology, and it's already to the point that you're describing, Mark. I mean, we're only 10 years in to Bitcoin as a thing. I thank you, Dana, for the call tonight. It was an interesting discussion, and I appreciate it. Feel free to call in any other time to talk about whatever you want. And that's what we do here on Free Talk Live. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And I appreciate him being willing to, come on the air here and explain what he thought we believed, because most of it was wrong. We are not in favor of the banking cartels. I personally wish I didn't have to have a bank account. I would love to get away from that system, but part of what I do is I try to help people get into cryptocurrency. I run a couple of vending machines that sell it, and I got to have access to the old banks to move money into Bitcoin.
I think that currency is a very important conversation. I just don't think that mass radio audiences tend to find it very exciting, and sadly.
Well, whatever. I don't care what they think.
He's right that it's important.
I don't care what mass audiences think. Money is very, very important, and if you don't think so, well, you need to rethink yourself. There's more. Hey, it is is Free Talk Live. We're here in Acapulco, Mexico. We got everything from car alarms going off to, well, you just missed some fireworks in the background. There may be more where that came from.
I heard some opera singer.
Somebody's cranking out some tunes in the background. This is, well, we're here. We're live. And it's Ian and Mark here in our remote studio, semi-outdoor remote studio here. The toll-free number, if you want to join us, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And we've got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms as well over at discord.lrn.fm. We can get back into the Green New Deal. We were going through some of the major points, Mark, that you wanted to highlight about this awful proposal. We can get back into that. But you made a comment at the end of the last segment there about how you didn't think people thought money was interesting.
Yeah, I tend to think that that's the case.
And
I'm not saying we shouldn't talk
true.
about it. I think it's important.
I think that's not true. I mean, I think most people think money is very interesting. They're very interested in, most of them are interested in getting more of it. Most of them probably, would like to have a better lifestyle, and they understand that money can help make things more comfortable. It's not going to solve all your problems in life.
Well, I have a little advice in the world where you can't do anything about government fiat currencies. Pay off debt.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Pay off consumer debt first, and then start working on, debt like your house and that sort of thing. I mean, you got to pay it off.
Consumer debt meaning like credit card?
Credit card,
yeah.
Student loan, things like that. I mean, student loan isn't really consumer debt. Student loan's the worst kind of debt. Don't get in that if you can avoid it. But if you're already there, and I'm sorry.
Kids, stay out of student loans.
Yeah, it's just, it's the new serfdom.
By the way, I do want to say thanks to, I think, Gary, who is a Free Talk Live Silver Amplifier, because money is important, and we like to ask our listeners to support us directly. Because you know what, this is the new world where we don't have to go through the gatekeepers.
Because we're not NPR and we don't take it at the point of a gun.
Yeah, we don't have to go through the old world gatekeepers, of the old method of. I mean, we do have advertisers and they're wonderful and we're grateful for them. But it's important to have direct support because we can from our listeners, and the AMP program allows you to do that. And Gary's a silver amplifier, which means that he's given $5 a month to the AMP program. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. And yes, you can AMP with Bitcoin as well. Most people don't, but it is there. It's an option because a lot of people want to hold on to their Bitcoin. And I don't blame them for that. I understand that. I think that's a mistake, however. I think you ought to, if you want to spend Bitcoin, buy some more. Right? So you don't want to deplete your Bitcoin reserves, because if you're getting Bitcoin because of the reason we talked about earlier, which is to get out of the old system, protect your wealth from the old system's ravages of it, then, presumably you wouldn't want to spend it because you don't want to deplete your reserves. So just buy some more. If you want to buy something on Purse that you mentioned, saveatpurse.com, buy some more Bitcoin before you load it up on Purse.
It's true.
That way you're not, that way you're not getting rid of the amount of Bitcoin that you have in store. There are so many people, Mark, who have told us, people who today love Bitcoin, they're totally into it, who told us, oh yeah, I wish I'd have held on to that Bitcoin that I got back in 2013, but I bought it at X and it went up to 2X, and I sold it at 2X and thought I did great, and now it's 20X, from what it was then, and they're feeling sorry. If you had just bought more, then you would have been doing all right, rather than just spending it all down to zero. So keep that in mind. You can join the AMP program. We can do it with PayPal. We can do it with credit card and Bitcoin BTC. Just go to amp.freetalklive.com, ampamp.freetalklive.com. Get signed up there, just like Gary did, who is a longtime Free Talk Live amplifier. So thank you.
Thanks,
for that.
Gary.
Yeah, thank you. Money is definitely important. It's certainly not the focus of this radio show. We're not a money talk show, but at the same time, when it comes up, I would say we know probably a little bit more than a lot of talk show hosts about the subject. It's something we've gotten into in detail here over the years on Free Talk Live. We're not investment experts.
Yeah, we're of the opinion that there's that old saying that there's for 1,000 hacking at the branches, there's but one who's attempting to strike at the root. I think that's Thoreau. And we attempt to strike at the root here on Free Talk Live, and we think that, well, maybe the government control of money isn't the root, but it's sure somewhere near the trunk.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt, because, if you think about what the government's able to do with its ability to just print out money via its buddies over at the Federal Reserve, they can do anything they want to do. You want to go to war, an unpopular war, no problem. Just print out the money and force the troops to go to the unpopular war. They'll do it. They'll do whatever it is they're told to do, even if they disagree with it, most of them. So all they got to do is just crank out the printing press and then send all that money over to their military-industrial complex buddies. But if enough people actually got out of the government money system and got into cryptocurrency, then they would be able to disempower the government. If enough people did it. I mean, it would take a lot of people. It would take a sea change. It would take a tremendous popularity for cryptocurrency in order for that to happen.
I mean,
but it could happen.
Yeah, cryptocurrency is on the it's got a wave going. It may very well go somewhere. It may not. I don't know. It all remains to be seen. I think for me, what I'm looking for are things that I can implement in my life that are going to make me freer today.
That is something that makes you freer today. Because everything, look, we know it could go down in value. So there's obviously risk involved, right? I don't want to be unclear about that. If you're getting into cryptocurrency, don't put in what you can't afford to lose. That said, if it does continue to take off, as many people believe that it will, that's money that the government can't target anymore. They can't devalue it. When the government prints out money, which they do all the time,
yep.
Some governments do it at different levels, at different amounts. So, for instance, Venezuela's going crazy with it, and they've got what's called hyperinflation as a result of that. And, you walk into a bar, buy one drink, sit down and finish it and buy another drink. The price has gone up. So that's how crazy it is there. The same thing happens in the United States. It's just on a much slower scale.
Slower, yeah.
Everyone knows it's true, right? Like if you've been around for a few decades, you know that 10 years ago, you could get more groceries in your grocery cart for $20 or $100 than you can today. And 10 years before that, you could get more in that grocery cart for $100 than $100 would buy today. So we all know inherently what the government is doing to the money supply. You may have the same number of dollars in your bank account that you had hopefully not 10 years ago, but if you did, it wouldn't buy as much. Your standard of living goes down as a result of this policy.
Well, you're making an argument for deflationary currencies, and I agree completely with your argument. However, if you bought cryptocurrency in the last 13 months, you're not saying to yourself, wow, I'm really protecting myself from inflation. You're saying, where's my money?
I already said there's risk involved, and you shouldn't spend what it is you can't afford to lose.
I think that's a better argument, and that argument is think about $1,000 and how you've wasted $1,000 in a variety of different ways in your life. If you want to go ahead and put $1,000 into cryptocurrency right now, you could be doing very well in 5 years, or you could have wasted it, which is just like the other thousands of dollars that you have wasted in your life.
Right. We don't know what's going to happen, but cryptocurrency is, in my opinion, the most important thing to happen to money in many generations. I mean, it's the only form of money on the planet right now that actually puts control into the hands of the individual. Now, you could argue that, you don't get to program Bitcoin, so what if the Bitcoin programmers make a change that people don't like? Well, there's good news. There's about 2,000 other cryptocurrencies out there, at least, that you can easily transfer into. Most of them, certainly the top 100, are relatively easy to get in and out of. So if you decide that something's wrong with Bitcoin, or you're spooked, you can move it out of Bitcoin, move it into something else, or maybe diversify. Once you get into Bitcoin, maybe you decide you want to get a little bit of Ethereum, or you want to get a little bit of Dash, or you want to get some of these other ones out there. All of these things are not controlled by the government money systems, by the bankers, by the Federal Reserves of the world, the central banks of the world, and that's why they hate it. That's why these bankers hate Bitcoin. That's why the governments are afraid of Bitcoin. Because what it indicates, and Roger Ver, credit to him for figuring this out long before we did, that this is one of the most important tools that we could possibly have to not only protect your wealth into the future, in theory, if it keeps going up in value. Certainly, the government money is going to go down in value. You can count on that. But to potentially protect your wealth and make you more independent from the current status quo in the government system. That's incredibly valuable. And as people start to realize that, as more people start to accept it at their businesses, as more people start to use it in daily commerce, which we see happen every single day in Keene, New Hampshire, where we live, which is one of the crypto capitals of the world as far as local businesses accepting cryptocurrency. And now you've got New Hampshire potentially accepting it as tax payments. Again, hasn't passed yet, but it's being talked about, and maybe it will pass. It got a full vote unanimous vote in the subcommittee hearing that it received.
Could pass.
So there's all these drip, drip, drip. There's all these little bits of good news coming around from all around the world about cryptocurrency.
Go to Bitcoin.com if you want to see this news. It keeps piling up. I watch their YouTube videos that they play. I think they put them out every week.
And like you said, some of the smartest people in the world are developing these cryptocurrencies and the software that helps the cryptos get into people's hands and such, like Edge Wallet, which is a great wallet. So more coming up here in moments. We got hour 2 next. We'll get back into the Green Deal on the way, the so-called New Deal. It's Free Talk Live.
She's such a beautiful little puppy. I mean, we walk around the block, and neighbors always say, her hair is so beautiful. Healthy and shiny and glossy. DINOVITE.com.
Fatty acids, omega-3s, and omega-6s are great for healthy skin and soft, shiny coats.
I would really recommend people starting their puppies on Dinovite before they get into what I would call the misery index. Bad skin, bad ears, bad breath.
Because if they're getting all their vitamins, micronutrients, microbials from the beginning, then you're not going to run into the problems associated with the allergies, grass, pollen, dust, dirt, fleas, ticks, you name it, and the itching and shedding down the road.
Our vitamins and enzymes replace the nutrients cooked out of most commercial dog foods.
Dinovite for life.
This is Ed Lukasevic
and Cindy Lukasevic,
inviting you and your pets to Dinovite.
859-428-1000. DINOVITE.com.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and we're kicking off the second hour of this live edition of the show on Saturday night. Here from Acapulco, Mexico, as we are taking it a little bit easier on the way up to the Acapulco event. Although we're still getting some work done while we're here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing what I would normally do.
Me too.
In a different place.
Sitting on a computer. Yeah. Doing stuff on the computer. Because that's what we do.
I'm doing it on shorts.
Yeah, that's true. It's very, very nice. Of course, the sun has now gone down here in Acapulco. It's cooling off to below 90 at this point. And you can join us next week for Acapulco. We'll tell you probably a little bit more about that later. But we've been, of course, as always, taking your calls and thoughts about whatever you want to discuss. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Let's go to the phones here. Mark, we got, by the way, Ian and Mark in the studio. Let's talk to Jennifer, listening to WIBC FM in Indianapolis. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Am I on?
You're on.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
I called in to discuss what they call the Noahide laws. Now that's spelled...
The no what?
Okay, it's spelled Noahide. Has Noah in it.
Okay, Noahide.
I'm familiar with this, sure.
I've never heard of it. What is it?
I wanted to hear your aspects on it so I can listen over the radio, but...
Well, before you go, can you tell me what it is?
I don't know that much about it.
Well, that's why I want to know. Jennifer, can you tell us what these things are?
Okay. It was signed into law by Bush Sr., I believe.
Okay.
And basically, it's like the Ten Commandments, but instead of 10 laws, there's 7. And it's more or less the laws that would have been enacted right after Noah and the flood. So it's kind of, Jewish in nature. Now, if you're a non-Jew, you should be, according to a Jew, you should be under the Noahide laws. And basically, it's like thou shalt not kill, maybe thou shalt not take blaspheme of God, thou shalt not steal, and the 7th one being a judiciary that would be set up to condemn anyone that breaks the laws. Okay. And I thought it was very interesting. I found out about it by researching, since they dedicated the new altar in Jerusalem for the Third Temple. I don't know if y'all knew that or not, but they did on Hanukkah.
No, I don't know anything about that. So you're saying that these are some kind of federal law? I mean, they don't have the federal government doesn't enforce laws against murder. Those are state government laws.
And so it's very confusing. But why would Bush sign this into law? That's my question.
I don't know anything about that. All I can say is that what I know about the Noahide laws is that they're laws that were instituted supposedly, for Goyim, people who are not Jews, way back in time, and that they're very sort of simple things, and they're a lot easier to consume. And I also thought that the Noahides didn't cut their hair, but I don't think that that's included.
No, and then I think it was I think, House of Representatives 102, I believe, was the number that was the law that he signed into law. And it was during Bush's reign, Bush Sr. And then why would we need a law like that? So that's why I would open it up for discussion.
Well, it obviously hasn't been instituted because one of them is that they're vegetarians.
This is one of the laws?
Yeah.
So maybe there's some misinformation out there about what Bush did. It sounds like she just hung up.
No,
thanks for the call.
Oh no,
you're still there.
I appreciate it. I will hang up.
I mean, are you sure this? Hold on, before you go. I mean, where did you hear that this was signed into law? Are you sure he signed it into law, or that it was just like some kind of ceremony where he acknowledged that these things are some part of history?
It showed him signing it into law on the internet. I researched it because 70 nations were invited to the dedication of the altar, and so I started to go back into history and say, why would there be 70 nations, and what does this mean, And that's when I came across the new deal that he signed into law for Noahide. And I went, whoa, I couldn't believe that I found that on the internet.
Huh. It's new to me. I've never heard of this before. I thank you for the call tonight, Jennifer. I don't know what to say about it because, like you said, Mark, you said there's some sort of mandate of vegetarianism in there?
Well, it says not to eat flesh. I've looked it up here on Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God for those people.
Yeah.
By the way, I do give every year to Wikipedia when they do their fundraiser. Not to eat flesh torn from a living animal. So maybe I'm wrong on this. That in fact it is just flesh taken from a living animal, and as not opposed to an animal. So excuse me, that's never something I've never done, is to eat flesh from a living animal. So there you go. The others are pretty simple. Don't worship idols and don't curse God. That's pretty consumable. People can get that.
I don't believe that this is actually a federal law. I don't believe that claim.
I don't know if it. No, I can't imagine that it is.
I suspect that whatever it is that she found on the internet. There's a lot of stuff you can find on the internet, and not all of it is necessarily true. It wouldn't surprise me if there was some sort of ceremony. A lot of times, you have the mayor, or in this case, the president. The mayor cuts a ribbon somewhere. That doesn't mean that it's the government approving this, new building or whatever. It just means you brought the mayor in to cut a ribbon, and it has a photo op.
And even if they sign something to say that this is a good idea, doesn't mean that it's ensconced in law either. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So according to IsraelNationNews.com, there are Noahide groups and communities in Australia, Europe, and North America. Significantly, in 1991, President George H.W. Bush signed into law a historic joint resolution. Okay, that's not the same thing as a law. Okay, so they're using the term signed into law, but that's not a law. A resolution is just, we declare blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is that they want to resolve. That's all that means. It says here a joint resolution, historic joint resolution of both houses of Congress, recognizing the 7 Noahide laws as the, quote, bedrock of society from the dawn of civilization, unquote. That's it. That's all they did. They just made a statement.
I tell you what, the Jews get a credit for a lot of things because that book has lasted. They were good librarians, good keepers of their stuff. The ancient mystery
Babylon.
The
Old Testament?
Yeah, the Old Testament, all that stuff, and all their stuff, the Talmud, the the Torah, all that. Their particular ancient texts. The Jews are newcomers in Mesopotamia and that general vicinity. Compared to others from whom they really got their religions.
Was that caller afraid of Jewish people, Mark?
I don't know. I'm not really good.
I couldn't detect.
I don't have the I don't have the radar for that kind of thing.
I wasn't clear on what it sort of felt like that call might have had. It certainly seemed like a conspiracy theory, and that's what I think it is.
Good rules, generally.
Let's go through them.
Okay. Don't worship idols.
Okay.
Don't curse God. I don't really care about them, but whatever.
Yeah.
You can imagine that those will be in place in any theocratic system.
I'd like to take this moment to deny the Holy Spirit. Go ahead.
There you go. To establish courts of justice. Good to have courts of justice.
Yeah, if they're not run by the government, maybe if they're,
Courts of justice traditionally were not.
Okay.
You take a look at
right, because
Islam.
the Jews and Islam and also Christians lived alongside of one another for a time, and everything was fine, and they had different
separate
systems
courts of justice.
separately.
Yep. Don't commit murder.
Yep, that's a good one.
Don't commit adultery or sexual immorality. Now,
Good one.
Who gets to decide whatever sexual immorality is? That's always the clincher
Sure.
there. But if you make a commitment of monogamy, you should stick with that.
Honor it,
You ought to honor it. Not to say that history isn't replete with people not honoring
No
it.
doubt.
Do not steal.
Yep, that's another
And
good
do
one.
not eat flesh torn from a living animal. So there you have your first animal
What if you
welfare
cut it?
law.
Can you cut it from the animal after it's dead?
Yeah, I think
Said living animal, right?
living animal.
Okay.
So torn and living.
So just
are
kill it first.
Operative. You could cut it from a living animal, I suppose.
Right.
Or tear it from a dead
Kill
animal.
it first, then cut, tear, whatever.
Sure.
You want to
And lots of religions
Roast.
have their rules on how an animal needs to be prepared. This is good.
Yeah.
I mean, this is good sanitary stuff. We need rules on this. I mean, should they be performed by a particular class of sect of priest? I don't think so.
You know, that call reminds me of the, it's sort of like the Jewish version, fear-oriented, fear, uncertainty, and doubt version of the Muslims are going to implement their Sharia law. It sounds like the same thing. In 1991, Bush implemented the, Noahide laws. Same kind of vibe is what
I don't know.
got
She
from that.
just asked a question,
Yeah.
and we've answered it.
Yeah, well, and hopefully we clarified that it wasn't actually a law. It was just a resolution saying, yeah, these are good ideas, mostly. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. Dial toll free and join us here. You can bring up anything that you want. On this live Saturday edition of the program, our number is 855-450-FREE. Also, we've got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. The Discord call-in line rooms are the best way to call the show, and I'm glad that we've got the system here on our remote broadcast that actually allows us, because we're in Acapulco right now. We're sitting out on a porch outdoors right now, and we're able to take our Discord calls, which is great because they sound great. The Discord server is something that we offer as just one of those the myriad of free benefits that you get from our website over at freetalklive.com. You can go straight to it by going to discord.lrn.fm. That's discord.lrn.fm. You can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners during, before, and after the show. It's a great way to connect with some of the people you hear on the air. A lot of those folks, like Gene the Christian Anarchist, who we're going to talk to next, he's hanging out in the server there. If you want to talk to him about something, you can do that. And in fact, there are even different rooms in which people talk about different things. There's a cryptocurrency room, there's a gaming room, and other different topics. You can find it all over at discord.lrn.fm.
And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. Bitcoin.com is your premier source for everything that is Bitcoin and crypto related. Bitcoin.com can help you choose a Bitcoin wallet, buy Bitcoin, get free Bitcoin, show you where you can spend your Bitcoin, play games with Bitcoin. You can read the latest news and engage in the community at the Bitcoin Forum. Learn more at Bitcoin.com.
All right, we go back to the phones, to Discord for the first time here tonight. Gene, the Christian Anarchist, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead. Uh-oh, something's wrong with Gene. Hold on, Gene. My bad here. There's a technical difficulty. We're going to have to work that out here in just a moment. I should have checked it. Normally I've been checking almost every caller during the breaks to make sure that everything's working out. So stand by, Gene. We're going to check back with you here in just a bit. So we've got, of course, plenty of things to talk about on the radio tonight. That's what we do. Mark, you had started the show tonight with a story about this Green New Deal. And this is a proposal by multiple Democrats who've signed on to make some absolutely ridiculous plans. Now, this is just a proposal. It's probably not going to pass, hopefully, because if it does, it will be an absolute nightmare for the people of the United States.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to. A lot of these are just ideas, right? They're lip service to their base, which is all pro the people and whatever. That's the notion. They're not, but whatever that might be. The other sort of foundation of democratic politics is that they're functionally economically illiterate. So here we go. The Green New Deal calls for building our high-speed rail at a scale where air travel stops becoming necessary. So they're going to build high-speed rail at a scale where air travel stops becoming necessary. I suppose good luck to Hawaii, right? California's high-speed rail boondoggle has already cost $100 billion and looks to be one of the state's biggest fiscal disasters ever.
Do you remember when, I think it was right around when we were leaving Florida, they had voted in on a ballot measure to have
People love it.
To have a super fast choo-choo there.
That's right. People love choo-choos.
And then they looked at the numbers, and eventually they said, yeah, this is too expensive.
Right.
And they actually unvoted it. They actually put another proposal on to repeal that.
I think it had been 6 years, and the bureaucrats had spent like $10 million on donuts and CAD drawings, and that was it. And off they go. And thank God that Florida made that decision. It sounds like a wonderful idea to have a railroad the super fast railroad that connects Tampa, Orlando, and Miami. Doesn't that sound like a fantastic idea? But then you get there and you realize, I wish I had my car. It's just, and as a person who travels every single year, my family travels in one shape or another from New Hampshire to Florida because gotta do Christmas. The kid's got to get down there to the grandparents and get that, a whole bunch of gifts that he doesn't need. And we got to, get on down there. And what I found over and over and over again is it is so much less costly to take a Prius from southwestern New Hampshire to Tampa Bay than it is even to fly on an airplane.
No kidding.
Any of those things. Yes, I understand travel on the road is more dangerous than air travel. I get it. But you can pack the trunk up full of the stuff you're going to need. And then once you get there, you have a car to drive around and you're not using your in-laws' car the whole time. So, it's just the best choice in many cases. A train ride compared to taking the family and the car on a train, my God, it's devastatingly expensive. Much so that I won't even do it.
I think I've remedied the problem here with our Discord server. It was an unplugged USB jack. Gene, are you with us now?
You guys sound much better now.
Yes, you do too. We can actually hear you. So what were you calling about tonight? Right. Go ahead.
Well, I've been around the world. And you guys are down in Mexico right now.
Yep.
We're planning to go to New Zealand in a couple of weeks, and I wanted to make an observation that I don't often make because usually I'm complaining about how horrible the USA is. And while that's true, because in my lifetime I've seen the regulations and the taxes and all of the oppression just go up at least 10 times from what it was when I was a kid. But having said that, and having traveled on several continents now, been to several countries, I don't know about New Zealand. I'll give you a report when I get back. But I have to say that I still believe that the USA is the best place on the planet to live. I can get in my airplane. I can fly it wherever I want to go. I can travel from point A to B without worrying too much about being stopped unless I'm close to the border. And even with the high taxes, and believe me, we pay a lot of money in taxes, we still have a lifestyle that's better than 90%, I would say, of the rest of the world. Because I guess I just wanted to say that I appreciate what I have, but I'm still going to keep fighting.
Well, yeah, I mean,
that's change. Yeah.
That's important, and we get people saying to us all the time, frequently on the air on this show, callers will be like, "Why don't you appreciate it? Why do you
people hate America?
Why you got to be so critical?"
And this is something that's leveled against libertarians all the time. Look, when I think his name was Alexander Bosch, but Mr. Bosch created the fuel injection.
Spark plug guy?
That's the same name. He has to do with the parts for Mercedes-Benz.
Cool.
Created the fuel injection system. He didn't hate carburetors. He didn't hate cars.
Yeah.
He didn't hate transportation. He didn't hate people getting from one location to the other. He just was talking about efficiency.
Making it better.
And I've got news for you, ladies and gentlemen. Governments are inefficient because they're monopolies. We know that.
Yeah.
We have rules. Governments institute rules about monopolies. Monopolies institute rules about monopolies. It's laughable.
Sure.
But that's what they are. There are organizations that claim a monopoly privilege on the use of violence in a given landmass. Once you claim the monopoly privilege on protection services, then you can claim the monopoly privilege on anything you want.
Gene, did you have more to say on the topic? Up to you.
Yeah.
Stand by. We're with Gene, the Christian anarchist. He's on our Discord server. That's why he sounds better than every caller we've had so far tonight. You can join us over there at discord.lrn.fm. We got more coming up on this live Saturday edition of Free Talk Live.
Does your dog itch, scratch, stink, or shed like crazy? Come to Dynovite for help.
Order a 90-day supply of Dynovite.
Dynovite is nutrition.
Pick up 2 bottles of Lico Chops. Get the 3rd bottle free.
New improved Lico Chops with omega-3, omega-6, vitamin E.
And now, 6 extra direct-fed microbials.
Even better for the digestive tract and immune system.
Try Lico Chops. Buy 2, get 1 free.
At Dynovite.com.
DINOVITE.com.
It's Free Talk Live. We are here on day number 3 of our live broadcast from Acapulco, Mexico. Very, very beautiful weather here, if you like it hot. And right now...
Some do.
Some do. It is actually pretty nice out right now. As soon as the sun goes down here, it drops significantly. And we're here. Even though it's 85 out, it feels cooler than that to me. I don't know why, but it does.
It's 85 out?
Yeah, that's what my phone says, at least
It's hard
Fahrenheit.
for me to believe.
It's Ian and Mark here in our remote studios as we are doing a live set of broadcasts for the next several days. And then we will be doing Acapulco for the 3rd time, I think. It's your 4th, but you didn't broadcast from there your first time.
No, I didn't even grab any interviews or anything.
So we're gonna be it's gonna be a busy week for us coming up here in the next week, and you'll be able to hear all of it.
We made a real mistake on Acapulco number 2. We decided to broadcast from Liberty Forum, and man, I mean, I regret it now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
oh well,
that was the year that we got the
award,
the Lifetime Achievement Award from
and then got kicked,
the Free State Project, and then 3 weeks later we got kicked out.
Yeah, I don't regret that at all, Mark. We got some great video footage,
some good stuff
from Paul.
It's just proof positive that you get libertarians all in one place and you get the opposite result. I've got here in front of me.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that there's an article about Acapulco and the libertarian or anarchist community here in Acapulco, and how it's just been in disarray for years, and it's just been a mess. So, I mean, the fact is, these migrations, they're full of bumps in the road. It's not easy. These folks do not get along do not play well with others.
The individualists, man.
Whether it's in New Hampshire or whether it's in Acapulco. And that's why we've got a couple friends here. I won't say who, but a couple friends that some of our listeners might know. They don't hang out with the libertarian community here. They don't want to get involved in the drama. Can't blame them.
I can't blame them at all.
Can't blame them. It's just people, though, really, all it is. When you get a group of people together, the larger it gets, whether it be a religion, whether it be a political movement, whether it be some fandom or whatever it is, you get people together, they're going to have disagreements, they're going to have schisms, they're going to have fights, people are going to cheat with one another in their relationships. There's going to be all kinds of just ugly stuff because life is interesting like that. I mean, I wish it weren't at some points, but it's like no matter what you do, you just can't get away from it. There's always going to be some ridiculous complication to even the most simple things that should seem simple and understandable. Working at a job, there's backbiting, there's infighting there. I
just want the listeners to know I'm working hard on finding a project that I believe is going to be very successful.
Yeah, as soon as you get 30 people involved in that project, it's going to fall apart.
No, it's not going to fall apart.
I guarantee you.
It's ridiculous.
That's just the way people are. So we go back to Gene, the Christian anarchist. The idea, though, in life is to find the ones that you can get along with and, tolerate their foibles and their issues and then stick with them. Gene, in Tennessee, you were calling in because you've done a lot of world traveling, and you came to the conclusion after many decades of this that the United States is still the freest place in the world, but that doesn't mean...
the best place, he said.
Oh, the best place. Sorry.
I think it is if you weigh everything. Now, there are places that are more economically free, such as Hong Kong,
mm-hmm.
but, there are other things about Hong Kong, if you've ever been there, that aren't that great. So they're mainly having to deal with the communist Chinese government,
sure.
which is getting more pushy all the time. But we have countries right now all over. You can just peruse the news, and all kinds of them now are trying to come down on fake news, and they're using the fake news discussion to control what they want to have said on the internet, so they can get more control over speech. Now, I think the biggest issue in the U.S., of course, is firearms, because once we lose them, they're gone. But free speech seems to be the biggest issue around the world right now, because all kinds of other countries are trying to clamp down on that.
See,
so I think,
Gene, I got to say I disagree on the firearms thing. There are lots of places in the world where pretty much anybody can have a gun, and those places aren't free. Iraq comes to mind. You can have an AK-47, and there's a culture of owning weapons in the Middle East, and that doesn't result in freedom, best I can tell.
I think if you're in Iraq and you're an openly homosexual person, they're not going to let you have an AK-47. They'll take it away from you as they hang you off a bridge.
Yeah, but I mean, there's lots of other freedoms there they don't have there either.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody in Iraq can own an AK-47. Anybody who makes any kind of waves.
Not anybody in the U.S. can own an AK-47 either.
Well, that's true, especially not the fully automatic unless you got the tax stamp, blah, blah, blah. But, I think the only reason that our government is staying in a little bit of restraint is because they know that everybody has firearms. If they were to do like Australia and take all the guns away, then we would be looking at every kind of control that every other country in the world is looking at right now. Because we still have liberty as a distant memory in our culture here. We do understand basically that we don't like to be pushed around. And although people are brainwashed into thinking that because there's a red, white, and blue flag there, they're supposed to do everything that that they tell them to.
Well, right. I mean, even the gun owners will obediently apply for permits, and beg the state for permission slips.
But more and more of them are saying they're not going to turn them in. And I talked to a lot of people.
That's true. There have been some that have been pushed to the limits, and they are putting their heels in the mud, so to speak. So.
I looked it up, and it looks like from a standpoint of legislation, the U.S. is the best country in the world for gun ownership. However, there are certainly countries where the government is so ineffective that effectively they have no gun laws because nobody enforces them.
Well, that may be true, but
it's difficult.
I don't think in those instances, those people need to use their guns to do something other than fight each other.
Gene, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. The toll-free number here is 855-450, free like freedom. Let's go to Ralph. He's listening in Bangor, Maine. Listening online, Ralph, you're on Free Talk Live with Ian and Mark on our live Saturday show. Go ahead.
Hi. I just, I remember when, the first bill that was passed by the Senate, while the government was shut down, was the Marco Rubio's anti-boycott Israel bill. Did you know about that one?
Tell me about it.
Well, it makes it any company that wanted to boycott Israel will not get any government contracts or any government business. And it passed 77 to 23. It's like, wow. I remember when we were all upset about apartheid in South Africa, and of their holdings in South African companies because they had a racist policy. And it seems to me that the same thing's going on, except when you try to boycott Israel, they make a law that it's against the law to boycott Israel.
That's crazy. I mean, it's not against the law necessarily, but like you said, they don't get the government contracts, which of course is, sweet, sweet government money for these businesses, which they love that stuff. It would seem like the government ought to stay the heck out of international affairs and leave people alone.
I don't know the specifics of the bill or the relationship between the Palestinians and Israel, but I can say this. The United States, the people, its government, the whole thing, have a sort of irrational view of the nation of Israel, and it's because of the Judeo-Christian, background of the United States. We think of this country that came into being in like 1947 as somehow related to this other country that existed 2,000 years ago in the Bible, and they're not related in any way, shape, or form. But a lot of people just think that it's really important, and that Jesus isn't going to come back until we'll build that temple or something.
It's some kind of ridiculous religious viewpoint. When you combine government with religion, you get an even worse government in a lot of cases. Of course, government itself, the coercive monopoly, is a bad idea. Ralph, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. Toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. If you want to join us, that's 855-450-3733. Or call on our Discord lines over at discord.lrn.fm. It's Free Talk Live from Acapulco. Free Talk Live. Dial in, toll free, bring up whatever you want. Our number 855-450-FREE. We're here in Acapulco, our live Saturday edition, where we'll take your calls about whatever's on your mind. And you can also call in on our Discord, on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. With you tonight, it's Ian.
And Mark.
And if we get the chance, we'll continue on these green proposals, these ridiculous-sounding laws that they want to pass, this so-called Green New Deal, when we get the chance. But we're going back to the phones and to the fun. Let's talk first to John, listening in Seattle to KITZ. Hello, John. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, Ian. Hi, Mark.
Hey.
Good show.
Thanks.
I just had something on my mind. And, all these pompous politicians with their programs and their plans, we got $23 trillion worth of debt. And,
is it that high now? $23 trillion?
Yeah,
last I looked, it was $20 trillion.
That. The U.S. dollar is supposedly the currency of reserve for the world. Mm-hmm. Now, what gives the dollar any value? There's nothing backing it. Nope. It's like belief. We believe if we give you a piece of paper that says U.S. currency on it, we're going to get something back. And that, it's going to go both directions. That if we get some product that, you think you want, you're going to give us some money. But that's all that backs it. It's just some belief, some faith.
That's correct. It's just absolute. You're absolutely right. It is belief and faith. Back in the day, it was actually backed by something. You could go and exchange the U.S. dollar for silver, for instance. You can actually still find them every now and then. You might be able to come across a silver certificate. I remember when I was working at the Kmart back in the late 90s, somebody gave me a silver certificate, and it stuck out like a sore thumb because they look different. There's a different color to them and everything. But you can't do anything with those anymore. You can't take them
now
to the Federal Reserve. Right. So you're absolutely right.
Nobody's talking about this, and it's just like it's almost a smokescreen. It's like you get all worked up over all these different issues. Why do we want this money? And then both sides get to arguing over each other over the money to the point they're going to shut down the government. But nobody ever stops to think, hey, we don't have this money. And if we do, we have to sell more bonds, and China owns 20% of the U.S. debt. Who's buying these bonds? Who's supporting all this debt spending?
The Federal Reserve.
Well, the Federal Reserve is the buyer of last resort. So if eventually the federal government can't find any suckers to buy their bonds, they just go to the Federal Reserve and they just snatch them all up by increasing the money supply.
Yeah, that's the deal. Yeah,
that's how it works. That's exactly right. And we've all seen how well that works out.
By the way,
over
the
time.
U.S. debt is at 21.9 trillion.
Okay, so
just about
22.
to crest over 22.
Yeah. That's what U.S. debt clock. Where are you getting that from?
However, the total debt. The total debt is 72 trillion.
So including the unfunded liabilities?
Unfunded liabilities and all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, well, good program, you guys.
Hey, thanks for the call, dude. I appreciate
it. You have a good time down there in sunny Acapulco.
John, thank you for the call tonight. You are spot on with that call, and it comes back around to the conversation we were having earlier tonight about cryptocurrency and these central banks and a way to get out of the government money system.
And it also highlights sort of the futility of, caring what the government does.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am looking at this clock, and I'm wondering to myself, the number goes up, 21,970 billion, 603
What's the website?
million.
Is it usdebtclock.com?
It's usdebtclock.org.
Okay,
and it's just going up and up and up, even under Trump.
Yeah.
And, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't do anything to make these numbers go down.
Well, it's not your debt anyway. I mean, you don't look.
No.
They love to tell you that. Well, every American owes blah 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 percentage.
Right. I talked to one of those idiots on Facebook just this week. Mm-hmm. Somebody who's like, "Well, if the country's the way it is, then it's our fault." No, it's not. I didn't write the Constitution. Yeah. I never took an oath to that Constitution. It's not my fault. And the fact that people who do take an oath generally take an oath to protect the people who are making this mess.
Yeah.
And it's just all in all a fallacy. America is not your country. It is their country. You live in it.
Right. They're the government. You aren't.
You're so much the serf, and you don't realize it, that when you go abroad, if I decide to come to Mexico and work for the next 5 years,
mm-hmm.
and I do so well, I make $250,000 a year, they're going to tax me on my foreign earnings. It's the only country in the world that'll do this.
That they own you.
I think Eritrea does it too.
They own you like a cattle that has escaped from its pen.
Right. They still want the milk even when I'm not there in the country.
Yeah. It's sick. Let's continue with your calls and thoughts here. Going to Joe, listening in Indianapolis, to WIBC FM. By the way, toll-free number 855-450-FREE. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I'm calling. I'm a Marine. I'm 80 years of age, and I served 32 months across the water in 7 different countries in force reconnaissance. And I'll tell you what you're talking about is, and the guns part and all that. I'll tell you, in my time and today, we are out of gas. First of all, you don't call the enemy up and tell him what you're going to do. You sneak up on him and do what you have to do. I got sentenced in the Philippines, in Cavite City, by the Filipino government, me and 2 other Marines. I got 42 years to be in their prison. I'll never tell what I did. Never tell what I did. I got 42. One guy got 52, and the other got life.
Okay.
And they put us in a truck, took us there. Next thing you know, they pulled the tarp off the truck. There sat the airplane, and we were gone. You know what? If you don't like this country or love it, leave it. This is the greatest country God ever put on earth. And by the way, we're all children of God.
Well, okay. So I guess I have lots of questions as far as this goes. Look,
I'll answer anything you ask me, and I get interviewed quite a bit. Go ahead.
Sure.
All right.
I would, when it comes to love this country, there are lots of people that define loving the country in lots of different ways. So, for instance, George Washington parlayed with the Quakers back during the Revolutionary War, and the Quakers refused to give monetary help to the Continental Army. Did the Quakers hate the country?
Well, I can't answer that question because you're talking out of my league. I can only answer the question from the fact where I was at and what I did. Did the Quakers love it? I'm a Catholic. We're getting all kind of head now as a Catholic. I can answer that question.
Hold on, I've got another version that maybe you can answer this, not as specific. Can one love the country without loving the government of the country?
Oh yes.
Can one love the country without loving the military of the country?
No, they gotta love the military, partner.
That's strange.
I mean, but the military is used by the politicians to achieve their ends, right? I mean, what military occupation has done anything for a U.S. civilian in the last 70 years?
Say that again?
What military operation, any military operation in the last 7 decades has done anything for any U.S. civilian? Or the U.S. civilians as a whole, I guess.
Well, I don't understand. Well, first of all,
am I freer because of Vietnam?
Huh?
Am I freer because of Vietnam? Am I freer?
No, let me tell you. Let me say something. Not tell something. I shouldn't use that word. Let me say something. I was in Korea.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And guess what? That was not a war. Today it's a war, right?
Well, it was a conflict.
No,
right.
It was a conflict.
Right.
Now it's a war.
Technically a war between the Koreas.
Right. Well,
for them it's a war.
The United States, in its duplicity, has not declared war since 1942.
When I joined the Marine Corps, I did it because I joined, right? And at the same time that I joined because of I fought for my country. And I'm very proud of that. And this country is the best place that you'll ever live.
Yes, you're repeating the talking points.
Let me say this.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
And the man that you just talked to, when he said where you guys are at, he was talking. When you do something, across that water, it ain't all like it is. There's a hell of a lot of things that goes terrible on across the water.
War goes sideways. Yeah. I mean, we should know that from the course of human history.
So what's the point? I mean, you still didn't answer the question.
Well,
you didn't answer the question about what war, what conflict has the U.S. military gotten involved in the last several decades that has actually benefited the people in the United States?
Well, you know what? I can't answer the question because I wasn't.
That's because the answer is none of them. The answer is none of them.
I'm sorry, but the military really is just the hit squad for a bunch of liars and thieves in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't that way.
And he was a Marine. Didn't he study Smedley Butler, who actually made that statement many decades ago about the military?
Yes.
Don't they swear an oath to Smedley Butler or something like that?
Well, they say goodnight to him.
More coming up here in moments. Hour number 3 on the way. You can join us 855-450 free like freedom.
The biggest names in the liberty movement will be at the largest gathering of freethinkers, voluntarists, libertarians, and ANCAPs in Acapulco, Mexico from February 14th to 19th, 2019 at Acapulco. You'll love the lineup of speakers discussing entrepreneurship, investments, politics, philosophy, health, sustainability, lifestyles, and personal relationships for 4 days among the sun and beaches of a world-class resort. Go to anarchapulco.com and use code FTL to register and receive 15% off. Anarchapulco.com, code FTL.
Free Talk Live.
Hey, it is Free Talk Live. As we launch into the third hour of the program, you can take control of the airwaves here. You can bring up whatever you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. As we are broadcasting live from Acapulco, Mexico, with you here tonight, it's Ian.
And Mark.
And, of course, you can join us also on our Discord server over at discord.lrn.fm. We've got 4 on-air call-in line rooms there that you can select one of them, join the room, and then we'll notice you in there, and we will join you, and you'll be able to be on the air with us and sound almost like you're sitting here in the studio. With us in our beautiful outdoor studio in Acapulco, where we'll be broadcasting from for the next several days and taking your calls as always. If you're just tuning in, we just got off the phones. We'll get back to this green thing when we get a chance to get some these ridiculous proposals coming from some of the people in D.C., but we just got off the phone with an older gentleman. I think he said he was 80 years old. He was in the Marines. He was deployed out into Korea. At some point, he got arrested in the Philippines and sentenced to 40 years in prison. Managed to escape
for something awful.
In some sort of heroic. Well, who knows what it was? But escape in some sort of manner from his captors and get out. And he.
Well, I don't know that. I'm not saying that he did something awful. I'm just saying the situation must have been awful.
Well, yeah. Anytime you're going and invading somebody else's country, it's probably a pretty awful situation. So
the Philippines was a protector of the United States for quite a long time, and lots of the atrocities that occurred there. But go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about the Philippines. All I know is it's an absolute hellhole as far as I'm concerned right now. and with 100 million people and ridiculous drug laws and ridiculous man, Rodrigo Duterte, who's running the place. But that's a whole other story. The reason I'm recapping here is because the guy who called in, of course, trotted out this mythology that you gotta love the military. And I specifically asked him, I said, can you, because he said, if you don't like it, leave. That old line that was so common. Yeah. I said, well, is it possible to love the country but not like the government, but not have any interest in the government? He said, yes,
absolutely.
It's possible.
However,
so then I said, is it possible for you to love the country but dislike the military? And he said, nope, you gotta love the military.
And what is the military except the government?
That's exactly what it is.
Where do you think they get their funding?
It's a government program.
Who do you think orders them around?
It is one of the most deadly government programs. I mean, I'm against all government coercion. I'm against all monopoly governments, not just the United States one, but all of them around the world. So I'm consistent on that point. And I'm against all the militaries from all around the world as well, because it's not because I'm against self-defense. I'm in favor of self-defense. It's not because I'm against people coming together to defend each other. I'm in favor of that. You want to defend your neighbors? That's great.
But America will be overrun in an instant by insert whomever.
False. We'd all be speaking Japanese, German.
Chinese, German, you pick, if it wasn't for the U.S. military. I mean, if you believe, and this man did, that God created this country, if you believe God created this country in a really enviable location. Mm-hmm. And geographically, we've got friends in the north and friends in the south. And, as far as the military goes, to hold U.S. influence, whatever that term means, you need to project power across the globe. But what is U.S. influence, and how does it benefit you and me as citizens or individuals, people in this country?
He couldn't answer that question when you put it to him about what was the...
I've thought about this a lot. I really try to come up with the answers.
Just name one conflict was what you asked him to do in the last 7 decades that has actually benefited anybody here in the United States, and asked on more than one occasion. He couldn't answer the question. He admitted he couldn't answer the question, but yet still held firm to his belief that the U.S. military...
And I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he holds some very common beliefs that we all need to examine.
Both of my grandfathers were in the military, and they weren't bad guys.
My father was, in the military during Korea. No doubt. I mean, he would have been about the age of my father, and I'm sure that I could have had a conversation very similar with him. Look, I was a very patriotic sort at one point, and it was my time on the radio looking at news day in and day out from the standpoint of who causes this, who does this, that has changed my opinion on the subject to believe now that not only that patriotism is a negative emotion, that just like anger and fear and these sorts of things, patriotism is a negative emotion. Look, I understand we're inculcated with the notion that it's a good thing, and I came from the same standpoint. I now believe otherwise.
Let's go to Drew.
What are the good results? Here's your question.
Yeah.
What are the good results from patriotism? 855-450-3733.
That's
what
a
are the
good question.
positive results of patriotism? 855-450-FREE. Free Talk Live.
All right, let's go to Drew in Tennessee, listening to WGOW either on the FM or AM band. I think we're on both tonight. They're in Chattanooga. Hello, Drew.
Hey there. So this is not a fully fleshed out idea. It's just occurred to me as I was listening to you converse with the last caller, so push back on this. But so as I was hearing you talk, I was thinking about somebody who's loyal to, say, their ancestors and the people who came before them for perhaps blind reasons. Maybe it was they were encouraged to honor their ancestors or think fondly of the people who came before them for tradition's sake. And I was thinking of the analogy with the military, thinking of, so if we are all sort of, if the framework for our lives has been laid out before us by our parents and their parents, the people who came over to this country and established roots here, or wherever you live. If our lives are sort of we've had a niche carved out for us by the people who came before us, then the gratefulness to those people wouldn't be directly for any one aspect of our lives specifically, but rather for the fact that we are able to live here now doing everything that we do. And so in the same way, having a the rule of law that we have domestically, we can live in the safety and security that we have with knowing that the police are there to enforce the laws.
Well, hold on. Let me stop you there. I noticed that you didn't say the freedom that we have, because America is getting less free over time. It was the freest country on the planet at one point, and I will agree with your point up to that, right? Like this, at one point, America was the freest country on earth. And yes, I can see why people respect their ancestors and the people who built this and all that stuff. However, it has become less free over time and continues to slide down the world freedom charts. Also, and this is important, if you look at just go on the internet and type in right now, for those who are sitting in front of their computers, type in, rule of law list, of countries, and you will find the United States isn't even in the top 10 at this point as far as rule of law. It continues to slip down the world.
What does that mean? It's not in the top 10 of rule of law. What does that mean?
Whatever the terminology is that they use, the people who put these charts together, and I can only presume that it's better than the three of us, you, me, and the caller, that they know more than we do on these charts, that the United States is sliding down.
But what are they ranking? I'm not clear on what that means.
Probably the application of law to everybody in the country. Like, let's take a look for this. When Charlie Rangel, and look, I'm not trying to pick on Democrats, he just comes to mind. When Charlie Rangel was found to be dodging taxes from the United States government, he was censured by the House of Representatives, which is to say nothing happened to him.
Right.
So when he's found dodging taxes, he doesn't go to prison. When you and I do, we do.
Wesley Snipes and whoever else. Yeah.
Right, but Wesley Snipes, on the other hand, did go to prison. Yeah. There you have two black guys who dodged taxes. One goes to prison, one didn't. And the operative difference is one works for the government, one doesn't.
I mean, it's hard to
believe.
Here's
another thing I have never seen when it comes to rule of law. I have never seen a cop pull over another cop and give them a ticket for rolling through a stop sign. But they do this as a fundraising measure all the time on us. And, there's no rule of law in this country.
Yeah. It's a rule of men is what it is.
No argument from me there. I guess this what I'm espousing could be viewed more as an argument for in favor of a military presence in general, rather than specifically for the way that our country is operating in the moment. To that point, just if all of a sudden none of our laws had the force of
violence,
had any force behind them, I just kind of imagine that our lifestyles might become impossible.
I can see the point. Violence is necessary to protect property, and property is the basis of law. I'm with you.
But we don't need a military to protect
Even if you cut the military by 90%, we'd be fine.
There's more coming up here in moments. This is Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live. You dial toll-free to bring up whatever you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We've also got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms, which you can join over at discord.lrn.fm. Want to say thanks to Freedom Rider, who is a Free Talk Live Silver amplifier at amp.freetalklive.com. He is somebody who supports the show through the AMP program. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. ampamp.freetalklive.com is where you can go there to sign up for the AMP program at ampamp.freetalklive.com. We continue here with your calls and thoughts. Let's go to Ed, listening in Indianapolis, or rather Franklin, Indiana, to WIBC-FM. Go ahead, Ed.
Yes, I just wanted to say that being in the Air Force for 20 years, I have had the experience of being in different countries.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm going about to say is, I know we have problems here in the United States. We're trying to do the best we can to try to resolve those issues, okay? But personally, okay, I have to tell you, sir, that the United States of America is the greatest country in the world. And I say that from personal experience in Honduras when they have patrols pulling the streets. You don't see no army patrols patrolling the streets out here. Okay?
I see the police in Army-looking vehicles in the streets in the United States. They've got armored personnel carriers in my little town of Keene, New Hampshire. They've got at least one.
Well, that's one, but constantly, sir, okay? That's what I'm trying to get to, because they stop you at every checkpoint. And, okay, because I was, like I said, in the military, I was riding what they call a white elephant.
Look, I'm with you, man. Checkpoints are terrible. Haven't you been stopped at a checkpoint in the United States, too? I sure have.
No, I have never been stopped for a checkpoint.
Well, if you were stopped for a checkpoint in the United States, and if it happened to you more than once, would that convince you were in a police state?
Well, see, now you're talking hypothetical.
No, I'm not.
No, checkpoints are not hypothetical in the United States, sir.
Okay,
I mean, maybe your 20 years in the Air Force kept you out of here, but they do checkpoints for DUIs.
Yeah,
they do
but I've
checkpoints.
been retired back since 1992, and I lived in
Listen,
Frankfurt
awesome.
in
I've been stopped in the last decade. I can tell you I've been stopped at 5, call
Maybe
it
they don't
6
like
or 7 checkpoints.
No. It doesn't have to do with them targeting Mark.
I'm just teasing.
Okay.
Okay, you can turn around. I respect your opinion, okay? I'm not going to debate your opinion.
It's not an opinion as to whether or not there are checkpoints in the United States.
Okay, I'm not going to debate that. But for me, I'm just saying for me. I'm not saying for you or anybody else. Number one, like I said, I've been back, retired military in 92.
Yes.
Okay?
You've said
that. And I have driven all over the United States. Okay? Now,
have you done it recently?
Well, I've been, yeah. Shoot,
within the last 15, 20 years? Have you done it within the last 15 years?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you must have missed the fact that there's permanent checkpoint installations set up, as well as roving checkpoint installations that are set up within 100 miles.
Do, sir.
Well,
they're on I-10.
Here's what I'd like to tell you to do, Ed. Get on the Internet and go ahead and look up Border Patrol internal checkpoints. Look them up. There's plenty of videos of people, including Mark Edge, the co-host here, sitting across from me. There's a video of you being harassed at one of these checkpoints, being questioned by some officious bureaucrat at one of these checkpoints. Now, whether they're doing it for DUI, which they do, I've been stopped at those up here in New Hampshire, or whether they're doing it for immigration, which they do, which I've also been stopped at in New Hampshire. So it's not just a southern border thing. It's anywhere within 100 miles of the international borders. They can set up these checkpoints, and they demand information from people. And that is not something that I consider to be a particularly freedom-friendly thing, Ed.
Immigration or...
You've just been talking the whole time because I put him on hold. Go ahead.
So, Ed, I've got I'd rather ask a question. Do you think this country that is sliding down the charts of the world freedom charts, economic,
all of them,
and liberal, and social, that is becoming, the rule of law is becoming less powerful in the United States than it was previously? Do you think that these facts, these aren't opinions, these are people who are paid to do this, making charts. Do you think that these things are that in any way that you're helping the country become more free and have better rule of law and become a better place to live by extolling the virtues of how the politicians have run our lives up to this point?
I agree with you, but I must say one thing, if I can, please.
Then it's not the greatest country if nobody rates it that way.
Sir, because I've been in other countries.
I've been in 30 countries. I've been to 49 states. You can't tell me. You can't use this "I've been there" thing.
But I have.
So have I.
Well, okay then. So we have a difference of opinion.
No, this has to do with the statistics and the facts that the Cato Institute, the Heritage Foundation. There are multiple different organizations that come out every year with rankings of freedom, comparing the different countries in the world, as many as they can compare. They can't get good information from North Korea, for instance, so it's always at the bottom of the list.
I did just say the United States was the best country in the world for owning guns. I just said that.
But on these charts, it has been going down year after year. The United States is no longer in the top 10, and it's going to drop out of the top 20 at some point if it keeps going in this direction. It was, number 17, I think, on the Cato list? So these people, they pour over statistics.
Officers or troops coming into my house, that want to
Boy, you just lucked out. You lucked out. You got somebody in the background shouting, yeah? Well, you're lucky then, Ed. You're lucky because there's thousands of people in this country, thousands of them, tens of thousands of them every year that have the police raid their homes. Now, it doesn't matter whether those police are wearing fatigues and calling themselves the military, or whether those police are wearing all dark blue and calling themselves the police. You're still getting your home raided by men with guns who are shouting and shooting, in a lot of cases, and killing the innocent people inside. It is not hard to find these stories. Just because it hasn't happened to you, Ed, doesn't mean it can't happen to you tonight. And it happens all the time. And again, you can go and look it up if you want to. I think the last statistic that we talked about within the last few weeks was about 50,000 of these raids. It used to be 40,000 in the last decade. I think it's up to 50,000 per year of these raids, many of whom the wrong house, the wrong part of the property. They got the wrong guy. They killed innocent people. Cops get shot too in these raids unnecessarily. And what's most of it about? Drugs. This so-called war on drugs.
America used to be the greatest country in the world. All right? I'll agree with you on that. But it doesn't get greater by stroking it. It doesn't get greater by saying, I served in its military. It doesn't get greater by sitting around and saying, oh, this is fine and that's fine. America's going in the wrong direction, and it's because everybody says it's okay. They're patting it on the head and saying, well, it's fine, politicians. It's still the greatest country in the world, in face of the facts. And I'm sorry, I want America to be the greatest country in the world. I really do. But that's going to take something different than what we've been doing up to this point. The generation prior to mine has been saying, we're the greatest generation in the world, and we did it just right. Well, no, they didn't. They instituted a lot of socialist programs. They're stealing money from future generations. This country is $22 trillion in debt, and it did it all while people did fireworks and waved flags.
855-450-FREE. Thanks, Ed.
Do you operate a retail business and are looking for a solution for point-of-sale cryptocurrency acceptance? It's never been easier thanks to AnyPay.global. There's no paperwork or approval process to open an account. If you already have a tablet at your cash register, you're almost done. Just sign up at AnyPay.global, drop your personal crypto wallet addresses in our setup page, and then load our app. That's it. You're accepting cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Dash at your store. Get started now at AnyPay.global. That's AnyPay.global.
It's Free Talk Live, the live Saturday edition of the program here, broadcasting from Acapulco, Mexico. With you tonight, it's Ian.
And Mark.
And as we continue here, ended up getting on to the subject of patriotism. And Mark, you'd asked an interesting question earlier. I didn't write it down. It was like, what was the value of patriotism?
What are the
or something?
positive effects of patriotism? Because we're told our whole lives, I mean, we're manipulated greatly by our patriotism. And I'm not going to say I don't have patriotism. I do. I think, sort of in my heart, I have patriotism for America. There's no doubt.
I have love for freedom, but not love for the government.
I'm with you. Well, I don't think that okay.
It is all about the government.
Emotion and logic aren't the same thing, right, Ian. And logically, I can understand that the government takes my love for this ethereal thing called a country and uses it to be able to hide behind to do all their nefarious stuff. I know that. It's just that I can, and I can look at the results of this over time. I can see that America is a very patriotic place, and I can see that it was once a very free place. The conclusion that I have come to is that politicians hide behind flags. That the reason that they support patriotism is because they understand that the more you're looking at the flag, the more you're pledging allegiance to it, the less you're paying attention to what the crap they do.
Right. The guy who was on the phone didn't even know there were checkpoints in the United States. I was like, oh, yeah, they're not raiding my house. Well, they could be. There's no reason why they couldn't.
Well, I think that,
even if you're innocent.
Well, I think that that at some point or another you have to have a system for getting in people's houses and looking for evidence. And so I don't have a particular problem with search warrants and that sort of thing. However, the problem is the war on drugs and how it's been perpetuated, and the difficulties that have come with the erosion of our constitutional protections, the Fourth and Fifth Amendments, to be specific. And that's what's going to happen. Police organizations don't like limits. They've never liked limits, and the Founding Fathers saw fit to limit policing organizations, and the results have been an erosion of those limits.
Let's go to the phones to your calls and thoughts. Toll-free number tonight, if you want to join us, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. However, I do need to remind you about Liberty stickers first.
Yeah, Liberty stickers. If you want to reach out to people with the ideas of liberty, you can do it from the back of your car with libertystickers.com. You can reach thousands of people with a bumper sticker, and people love to read them. Check out the vast selection of witty,
especially while you're stopped at a checkpoint.
Right, at this checkpoint, people could read your Liberty stickers. The witty, poignant, pithy, and downright bombastic Liberty-oriented messages at libertystickers.com.
Let's go to Mike, listening in Georgia. Mike, you're on Free Talk Live with Ian and Mark.
Hey, Ian. Hey, Mark. How y'all doing?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for being here. Go ahead with your thoughts.
I enjoy your program. I only agree with y'all about 50% of the time. But
That's all right.
I enjoy it. Y'all really stir things up.
I appreciate that. Go ahead.
You made a comment about the greatest generation. I agreed with that. They weren't the greatest generation. They put all these socialist programs in place. They were the ones that actually lost Vietnam for us. And, Richard Nixon was a part of the greatest generation.
Yeah, I think that's worth pointing out is that Vietnam, I love to point this out, is that these soldiers, they gave their lives, their blood, their sweat, their tears, to win this war, and they did. And then the politicians pulled them out and gave everything up. And this is the problem when you give everything to politicians, like your life, your blood, your sweat, your tears. That's what they do with it. They don't care about it.
Or you fight a war to a draw, like Korea, like Afghanistan, like Syria, or Iraq, number one. I mean, dang. I hope we pull all
Iraq number one. They won the heck out of Iraq number one. They just stopped.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It wasn't total victory. It's like I don't know. Anyway, guys, I'm going to let you go. Y'all
hey, thanks for the call, Mike. But just to go back to the other point earlier about what do you get out of it? You get dead Americans. That's what you get out of it. You get people who otherwise would have been productive members of society. All those soldiers who died in Vietnam, all the soldiers who died in, you fill in the blank, Iraq or wherever. These are people who could never have added to the society. They couldn't have brought whatever talents and skills to bear in the marketplace to actually create useful products and services for people and actually do it on a voluntary basis, which is what they would have been doing if they hadn't been over there dying in the dirt or in the mud or wherever it is they ended up perishing. So it's a total loss. It's a complete loss. There's no benefit to it whatsoever. The only people who benefit from it are the politicians and the military brass who, get big paychecks from it. Oh, yeah, and the military-industrial complex who gets loads and loads of money from the taxpayers or straight out of the printing presses.
Yeah, don't forget you have to pay for the mental health treatment of those soldiers, and that, what is it, 10 times?
You mean the ones that don't die?
Yeah, 10 times as many veterans commit suicide as they do die in,
Oh,
war.
Don't worry, Mark. They figured out a way around that. So all they have to do is say that you had the mental health issue before you were in the military, and then, therefore, they don't have to cover
Bingo,
it.
bango, they don't take care of their vets. And this is another thing that the government does all the time. It's amazing. Vets seem to be the most patriotic people out there. They're the ones that get treated the worst. Not all of them. Yeah. I'm just saying seems to be.
You're right. And it's been over decades. It's not like they just started getting treated bad. It's been scandal after scandal after scandal.
Right.
The hospitals are in decrepit condition and, you can't get the treatment.
Take a look at the bonus war when the actual U.S. military turned on its veterans who were asking for benefits from World War I. Yeah. I mean, this just goes
By turned on, you mean shoot.
And on. Well,
shoot at.
Yeah, there were people were killed. I'm not entirely sure. Their bayonet charges were put in place, but they were,
there weren't a lot of deaths of the bonus.
No,
war.
They didn't want to kill these vets. They wanted to get them off the lawn and stop protesting.
Let's continue with your calls and thoughts. We have Alexander on the line, listening in Myrtle Beach to WRNN. Hello, Alexander.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, what's on your mind tonight?
I love your show.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, man. I just want to say, I've lived in two different places that have really opposing views about patriotism. I was born and raised in Baltimore City in Maryland, where there's quite a difference between there and where I am now in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And I got to see kind of like the reasons why. I got to see kind of both sides. And where I am now, I see that the patriotism a lot of your listeners are arguing about. I feel like they're patriotic about the people of America, not the government. And they think that it's the folks that they know that serve in the military. It's the folks that they know that are these police. And in these communities where I'm at now, I mean, the police are awesome. You know, I don't get stopped for no reason. I don't. You know, police where I live now. You know, it's a beautiful thing. Like I'm you know, when I see the police, it's not this feeling in my chest, and it's like I
Are
feel
you
like
black?
a lot of my name. I'm actually I'm other.
You're other. You're not a white guy?
Do you think they would identify you as other? Or are you just other by your own standard?
They would identify me as black. I identify myself as other. My mother's white.
Okay, so they would identify you as black, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let me address this. I think it is awesome when I get to feel served by police, and I do often. Now, I do not get identified as black. I don't choose other. I choose to say I have no race. I just, that's it. Race hasn't done me any good. I just choose not to use that terminology. I don't have it. However, I live in a world where I understand that people can see race, and they may very well choose to identify me by the predominant genetics I have, which are European. Fine, I gotcha, no problem. And when I get stopped by police officers, yep. I usually just get warnings. They treat me very well. I like that, and I know the feeling you're talking about, and I really appreciate it when a cop does their job and does it well.
But what I want to say is, on the other side, I grew up in Baltimore City, and most of the police I dealt with were actually black officers, and I've never been treated like a human being in those situations. And not just white officers too. The race didn't really matter. It was the attitude of the government and of the police.
Right, because it's not about right. I think you're touching on something. If you want to stand by, you can. If you got more to say, Alexander, you're touching on something important here. It's not about race. It's about authoritarianism. It's about statism. It's about the idea that they're in control, and you'll do what they say or else. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. We're here in Acapulco for day number 3 of what will be a bunch of days right up before we start over at Anarchapulco next week on Thursday. You can go to anarchapulco.com to learn more about that event. Use code FTL to get 10% off your tickets there. Oh, there's something else I wanted to tell you about, and that is the new Free Talk Live clips, video clips. People have now have the ability to share some of the great moments from Free Talk Live that have been selected by our video editor, Eric Freerock, who has come out of retirement, and he is back at it, creating great Free Talk Live clips and then putting them on YouTube. You can go and subscribe to the channel over at clips.freetalklive.com. That'll take you right to the channel. Also, if you follow us on Twitter or our Mastodon or Telegram, so you can go to any one of either Twitter or Toot or Telegram.freetalklive.com to get to those social media. We'll also be putting notices up there when the clips go live on YouTube. So hopefully you will get the notice, whether you're subscribed or not, to the YouTube channel. You'll get the heads up on the different topics that are coming up on clips. You know what we ought to do, Mark? We ought to mention on the air what the clips actually are like for the last day or something like that. If we think about doing it. Now I just thought about it right now, but like what are the ones that that went up today? Because he's been putting up like 2 or 3 per day. He's been super busy at it. Certainly not what I was expecting. As far as I figured it'd be like maybe 1, but he's
1 per
doing,
day tops. Yeah.
He's doing a lot of work on these things, and the fact is the channel had been kind of disused for a number of years, and so I don't know how many of the subscribers are still subscribed or paying attention. So we're basically building it from scratch, and we want to help him do this. We're helping Eric actually build his channel. It's not our channel. It's his. It's called Liberty Bits. But go check it out over at clips.freetalklive.com and hit that subscribe button, and you'll get some cool clips of the show, and then you can share those out to folks, and it's a great way to share Free Talk Live with your friends and family. Maybe get us more people hearing the ideas of freedom.
From 4 hours ago, Hawaii wants to ban cigarettes by 2024.
It's crazy stuff. For everybody. If you're under the age of 100 in Hawaii, if this goes through, you will be prohibited from possessing or selling cigarettes.
11 hours ago, smart meters catching fire.
Yep, check it out over at clips.freetalklive.com. We go back to Alexander listening in Myrtle Beach. Alexander, you said you've had a variety of experiences with the police, going from being targeted by the police in Baltimore for some very negative experiences to now where you are in Myrtle Beach and having much more pleasant encounters.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for letting me finish my call, man.
Sure.
Yeah, I just, like here, the police are my neighbors, quite literally, we have, we watch the Super Bowl together. I've never had an experience like that. I'm 37 years old, and my entire life, I moved here 4 years ago, and my entire life, police have, or this, my experience with that was there were this, like pirate organization that, like, you ran from. But before you guys, I'm done. I just wanted to make this one statement. I wanted your listeners to look up something. It's different than patriotism, but it's something I think that America could use, a little. And it's called voluntarism. Have you ever heard of this?
Yes, I have.
Oh yeah, we're voluntarists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you know what? This is like a new term, a new ism that I've just learned about looking on the internet. And I mean, for people that don't know, it's basically the idea that all interactions between human beings should be voluntary.
Isn't that beautiful?
Wouldn't that be? Yeah, I think that would be
it's so simple.
A beautiful future.
It's also referred to as voluntarism or voluntarism. It depends who you ask. But this is how I define myself as well, and I think it's a wonderful thing, and we need to talk to more people about it, and including folks like the police, because I've had a similar experience to you, Alexander.
I learned the ideas of liberty from law enforcement officers.
Which is strange, but I guess it's possible. Anything's possible. But I've had a similar experience, at least. Thankfully, I didn't have a bunch of real-life encounters with the police down in Florida, but I didn't like the cops down in Florida at all. They were scary. They were intimidating. And when I moved up to Keene, New Hampshire, and was able to, I did a lot of cop block activity up there in New Hampshire, and was able to connect with the police as human beings. And I stopped seeing them as these mindless automatons working for the state. So my relationship toward them and my attitude toward them has changed. That doesn't mean that I am still not a critic of theirs, because they still need to be criticized. Even though you may have had some good experiences there in Myrtle Beach, I guarantee you there are people in that police department who are corrupt and who are rude and who are, you just happen to get lucky.
Headlines, you'll see that.
Yeah, exactly. Or, talk to some people who are of the poorer, persuasion, and see what their encounters have been like.
This is the difference. Where I'm from, there's a very heavy war on drugs in Baltimore City.
Yes.
And see, where I live now is in the city of Myrtle Beach. And there is a drug problem here, especially the old folks and my neighbors, they swear that it's terrible. But, compared to where I'm from, there's not a very huge war on drugs here.
By comparison, there will be a difference, and that is, and it is important to understand those differences. And I appreciate your call, Alexander, and thanks for sharing voluntarism with our audience. We love the excuse to talk about that. So thanks for the call tonight, man. And just remember, the police still need to be held accountable, even in smaller towns. And it's a little easier to hold them to account, although they can also turn the tables on you and target you. And, small town cops aren't necessarily less corrupt than their big town brethren. So you just got to keep that in mind. I mean, I just published a story last month at freekeen.com about the cops raiding a man's house who was having a mental break. They didn't need to do what they did. They came in with at least 5 armed officers with at least 1 assault rifle, maybe more than 1. It's hard to tell from the video. And at least 2 full-body shields, barking dogs outside. They came in with 11 cruisers outside this guy's house, and all he was doing was having a mental break inside his own home by himself. So it was a welfare check that ended up turning into his parents saying they wanted to, do one of these involuntary commitments against him. And after the fact, and because I was the only person in the media to cover his story, he reached out to everybody in the media and tried to get attention for. He had video of this, He had video of these cops coming in and pointing laser sights at him in his own home. This is in a small town of 25,000, 23,000 people. This unnecessary police response was completely uncalled for.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say modern society is not ready for dealing with mental health issues. They just don't have we just don't have a good system for it. Maybe they've got it in Europe. I don't know. Maybe Iceland's nailed it down. I couldn't say. I haven't looked into this thoroughly enough. But sending police officers, armed police officers who are
it's not compassion.
Yeah, who are scared for their lives all the time.
Yeah, he wasn't armed. There was no evidence he was armed. He hadn't threatened anybody. Hadn't even threatened himself.
I've got to say, I have no interest in going in and seeing a crazy person without carrying a weapon.
There's a difference between carrying a weapon and having an assault rifle pointed at somebody who has not threatened anyone in any way, shape, or form and coming in with a full-on SWAT raid on somebody's home. When I spoke to him after the fact, he told me if they just sent a couple officers with, normal uniformed officers to his door, he would likely have done whatever it is that they told him to do. But they didn't even try that approach. It was like, whoop, 11 cruisers rolling up. We're going to set up outside. We're going to point a bunch of guns at the house. We're going to make a scene for the entire neighborhood to see. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. So if you want to check out that story, just go back to December, search freekeen.com and look for, SWAT. Just search for SWAT or something like that. Just ridiculous. Let's continue here. We got Greg on the line in Indianapolis listening to WIBC FM. Hello, Greg.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
All right. So about checkpoints, you had spoken earlier. See, to me, I've lived in Southern California where I was very near a checkpoint for the U.S.-Mexico border. But to me, a checkpoint for drunk drivers or a checkpoint for anywhere near the border, it should be a standardized thing, and it shouldn't be something that should upset you so much. To me, driving
so you're totally
not
fine just being stopped on the roads and questioned by the police?
Do you think it's compatible with the ideas of freedom, whether you like it or not?
Yes, for those reasons, yes. For those two reasons, yes. I think there are a lot of corrupt police officers. I think that there's way too much big government. But for those reasons, yes. Partially because driving is not a right you have. It's a privilege. And
how do you think it got to be that way? I mean, like you're saying that like it's a fact. And to me, that's just something the government says. They make me pay for their stinking roads, and then they tell me driving a vehicle that I bought on that road is a privilege.
That you paid for.
How'd that happen?
I wish we had more time to talk to you, Greg. Feel free to call back in tomorrow. I'd love to continue the conversation, but we're out of time for tonight. But we will be back tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at night Eastern Time.
Driving on the roads that we forced you to pay for is a privilege. Now show us your papers. Show us your papers.
That's freedom, baby. We'll see you tomorrow night online. In the meantime, you can join us at freetalklive.com. Enjoy your weekends.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com